The forest itself seemed to be holding its breath, each conifer like a silent sentinel guarding the secrets of the deep woods. Gloomwood Hollow was a place spoken of only in hushed, fearful whispers by inhabitants of the nearest towns. And now, Dr. Elara Vance, a driven ethnomusicologist in her mid-30s, stood at its edge, about to step into a nightmare from which there would be no waking. Her quest was singular: the legend of the Withershins Lullaby. It was said to be a melody predating recorded history, possessing an unearthly power. The village, if it could be called that, was shrouded in an oppressive silence, the monochrome landscape stark and unwelcoming. The villagers, few and gaunt, watched her with guarded, unreadable eyes. Elder Maeve, a woman whose age was impossible to guess, received her with a chillingly formal courtesy. She acknowledged the existence of the lullaby but claimed it was sacred, not to be shared lightly. Still, she allowed Elara to stay, offering her a small, isolated cabin, ostensibly for her research. But as Elara unpacked, she noticed strange woven symbols, some incorporating small dried red berries hanging over doorways. A chill snaked down her spine, but curiosity, that bane of all good researchers, kept her rooted to the spot. Over the next few days, she met the villagers, all bearing the same haunted look etched into their faces, all seemingly wary of Finian, a young man who seemed to drift in and out of the edges of the village, avoiding eye contact. Occasionally, he would leave small, unsettling gifts for Elara: a perfectly preserved bird skull, a single, unnaturally vibrant red feather, a crudely carved wooden figurine. Each gift was both disturbing and fascinating. Then there were the nights. Elara would hear the faint strains of a discordant, deeply unsettling melody, as if the forest itself was sighing in pain. Each night the music grew louder, more insistent, seeming to beckon her deeper into its dark heart. The villagers conducted secretive gatherings, their faces grim. Their rituals were private, their conversations cryptic, their eyes holding the weight of ages. Their language was ancient, their customs archaic. They shunned technology, shunning even clocks, their lives governed by the rhythms of the forest and the lullaby. In the daytime, Elara pored over old texts, attempting to piece together the origins of the song and the nature of the Old One of the Wood, an ancient, sentient entity that demanded tribute every 100 years. The lullaby was a binding song, a contract between the villagers and the Old One, a horrifying pact made to ensure their continued survival. The text spoke of an offering, a terrible price to be paid, a soul to be surrendered. Was it Finian who had been taken each century? Was that why he looked so tormented? Why did he try to warn her? One day, she followed him to a hidden grove deep within the woods, a place untouched by the sun, where the air hung heavy with the scent of decay. Here, amidst gnarled trees and choking vines, they conducted their most sacred rituals. On smooth, moss-covered stones, Elara saw strange, primitive altars and those same woven symbols she'd seen in the village. She found a small, worn book lying open on one of the altars. With trembling hands, she opened it. The pages were filled with faded script, but one symbol caught her eye, the same one she'd seen around the village, circled in faded red ink. Below it was the word silence. It was a warning, a threat. Days turned into weeks. Elara, now desperate, pieced together the horrifying truth. The lullaby was a siren's call, a trap. The Old One of the Wood had lured her to Gloomwood Hollow, knowing she would unravel the melody. It had bided its time, waited patiently until the hour of sacrifice was nigh. The bloom of offering, a rare, deep red flower that signaled the time for the ritual, was now in full bloom around the village. The ceremony was close. As night fell, the villagers prepared. The men bound branches into whips, cracking them sharply. The women ground pigments into paints, mixing them with a substance that looked disconcertingly like blood. Children, their faces streaked with dirt and tears, clutched at their parents' legs, begging to be spared. But their pleas were ignored. Fear coiled in Elara's stomach. Trapped in a nightmare, she knew she had to escape, but every path led back to the heart of the village, to the gnarled tree and the ancient ritual. The woods themselves seemed to conspire against her, the trees forming an impenetrable wall of black against the inky sky. The villagers emerged, their faces like grim masks, and silently herded her toward the clearing. Fianna tried to stop her, his eyes wide with terror, but he was too late. Before her stood the ancient tree, its bark scarred and weeping. Elder Meve stood before it, chanting the Withershins Lullaby, her voice echoing with an unearthly power. As the song reached its crescendo, the tree groaned, splitting open to reveal a pulsating inner core of deep, visceral red. Tendrils of shadow, or perhaps roots infused with red light, lashed out, coiling around Elder Maeve, drawing her up into its gaping wound. She offered her throat to the tree, her eyes blazing with fanatical fervor. Then she was gone, consumed, her sacrifice complete. The tree sighed in apparent contentment, its leaves rustling in the sudden breeze, and then, as if awakening from a dream, Elara blinked, confused, scared, alone. What had she just witnessed? Where was everyone? Had it all been a hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation or some trick of the light? Or was it something more sinister, something that had been waiting for her in the darkness, something that still lingered at the edge of her vision, waiting for her to leave? Because deep in her gut, she knew the nightmare wasn't over yet.